So I want to welcome everyone tonight to our grant writing workshop, which is held every year as we start the application process for our Arts and History Regrant program. We have made a few relatively small edits to the application, so I'm glad so many people are here tonight because there are some additional forms that will be part of the application process. I'm Matt Pisarski. I'm the County Planning Director and the Department Head for the Department of Planning, Tourism, and Community Affairs. And we have Omari Williams with us tonight, who runs the Cultural and Heritage Commission and the Arts and Regrant program. Many of you I know and have seen before, and welcome back. I see a few new faces, so that's good too. And we're going to try to do this as simply as possible, and it's not a real long presentation. We have plenty of time at the end for questions and any discussion you want to have on the program. So we'll get started. The application itself is on the Explore Cumberland website with all the forms. There are also paper copies here tonight. And we can have it emailed to you, we can print it and give it to you. There's multiple ways for you to receive the application. This is the front page of the application. The items to remember from this is that the deadline for submission is Friday, October 3rd at no later than 4 p.m. All right, and we only need one copy, one full copy. Please no staples. You can alligator clip it or whatever you want to do, but it's better if there aren't a million staples in there. Because what we're going to do with it is review it for completeness, and then we're going to scan it in, and we're going to send it out to our independent grants review panel. So staples do not help with that process. If you need Spanish language, we do have a commission member who is fluent. And her number is at the bottom, so you can always communicate with her. And the Explore Cumberland URL is on there, and Omari's email. Any questions, you can contact Omari. If you draft a narrative or any component of the application and you want us to take a look at it prior to the due date, you can send it in, email Omari early, and he can give you feedback on it before you formally submit it. So there's arts and there's history. So there's two sides to this. And they have slightly different criteria as to what can be funded and what cannot be funded. So in both cases, your organization needs to be either a nonprofit or a government agency. And for GOS, general operating support on the art side, your organization has to be based in Cumberland County, and you need to be properly incorporated and tax exempt. It's the same for the history. Nonprofit or government agency, GOS needs to be based in Cumberland County, properly incorporated, and on history, it can be an organization that applies as an umbrella agency for an individual historian's project. So in a few cases, once in a while, on the history side, there's somebody who's doing a project, maybe a PhD student who's doing research or something related to Cumberland County history. And if that's what you want to fund, then the organization, the historical society, or whoever it may be, has to be the entity that does the application to us. Can't be an individual. What can be funded? Any publicly accessible arts or history event, program, or activity occurring within Cumberland County in 2026. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. Your event is occurring next year, it's occurring in Cumberland County, and it's publicly accessible. Operating expenses for nonprofits, GOS funding, your primary mission has to be arts on the art side. And then on the history side, if you're applying for operating, your primary mission has to be history. What cannot be funded? Can't fund capital expenses. We can't fund equipment with a 3-year shelf life or longer. So for instance, if you're a music organization and you're buying a piano, that's not an eligible expense. We can't fund deficit reduction, scholarships or fellowships, fundraising events. Now, you can certainly make money on your event that we are funding, but its primary purpose cannot be fundraising. So if you're holding a $65 a plate dinner as a big fundraiser, that's not an eligible expense on the grant side. We do not fund food or alcohol. That has to come out of the match or whatever you're using as a match. No foreign travel, and anything that is non-public. We haven't had it here, but both Amari and I serve on review panels in other counties, and there were some instances in which, let's say, a private school was doing an event specifically for their students, and nobody else was invited. That's not a public event. All right? On the history side, it's basically all the same stuff, but we additionally, if the research or programming relates to inaccessible material, so photography or documents that are not going to be on display or cannot be viewed by the public, that's not an acceptable source for funding. All right, any questions on any of that? All right. So there are three primary types of grants that you can apply for on both sides, arts or history. First one is the special project. That is if you have an event occurring. All right, you're doing one event, it's a big event, that would be a special project. General programming is if you're doing a series of events throughout the year. Multiple events, then you would do a GPS. And then if you are applying for operating support, which has a higher threshold of expected components to the application, that's for if you're going to fund, like let's say you're an art gallery and operating support would include insurance, potentially salaries, anything related to the operation of that gallery, then that would be a GOS application. But for GOS applications, there are higher thresholds regarding the application process. And then a lot of the changes or additional requirements are in red. For this, I think this was the case last year too. Timesheets will be required if an organization is utilizing grant funding to cover salaries. So if you're going to cover a salary, we need to see the timesheets as they occur. An organization can apply for one arts grant and one history grant if you have programming that meets the criteria, but you have to identify, is it going to be a special project, GPS, or GOS? There are no set limits on the amount you can request. However, these grants are competitive, and we need to make sure that the request aligns with your organizational capacity. So if you're a brand new organization, have never done the event before, and you're asking for $30,000, that doesn't align real well. It's going to create a red flag to the grants review panel, and there may be issues with the application. So just make sure that what you're requesting is backed up in your budget narrative and aligns with your organizational capacity. Okay? Match requirements. There are technically no match requirements for 2026. All right? However, we want you to keep in mind that at some point, the state is going to reinstitute match requirements. So, recognizing that, you want to make sure that you are not relying solely on these grant funds, that you have a diverse funding pool that you're pooling from, fundraising, individual donors, other grant sources, business sponsorships, so that if something changes in this program, you're not caught off guard. Also, a diversification of funding sources is a criteria in the scoring. So we want to see, even though we're not requiring a match, if you do have match, we encourage you to show it in your budgets and in your budget narrative. Okay? Acknowledgements. So in every case, there is specific language for arts and specific language for history. That language is here, and it should appear on all your marketing materials. If you're doing a radio spot, in that radio spot, if you're getting arts funding, you should say funding has been made possible, blah, blah, blah. If you're doing flyers, you should have that language at the bottom of the flyer. It can be small, but it needs to be there. And the appropriate logos should be included. So cultural and heritage logo on everything. And then if you're arts funding, State Council on the Arts logo. If you're history funding, New Jersey Historical Commission logo. Okay? We should not, this includes Facebook, social media, everything. We should not look and find a flyer and print it, and that language is not on it, or that those logos are not on it, which we did come across a few this year that we know we had funded, and they had to go back and correct their marketing. So it's very important, and everybody sees it. So county commissioners see it. They want to make sure that proper acknowledgement is given. Any questions on that?
Now, where do we get these logos?
So when you receive your award, you will get an email from Amari with all of those logos on it. Okay? I didn't just turn the sound off, did I? No, it's still red. I still got it. I hit it and I thought, well, all right. So the way the process works is when you submit your application, it goes to a grants review panel. The grants review panel scores all of your applications based on a series of criteria. And the criteria is here. It's the quality of the experience, the audience engagement, attendance, governance, and budget. So again, organizational capacity, budget, basic stuff. Award letters, so once those scores are calculated, it goes to the Cultural and Heritage Commission. The Cultural and Heritage Commission makes recommendations on funding based on your score. Those recommendations go to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners then makes the awards, usually in December. You then get your award letter, preferably in January, but sometimes it's a little delayed, definitely by end of Q1. And you get your contract, you get the logos, and then you can move forward with your project. There is an appeal procedure. It's explained in the guidelines. There's a 2-week period after your award letter is received that you can appeal your award. However, those appeals must be based on if you feel that the grants review panel misunderstood your application in some way. It can't be based on you feel like you didn't get enough money. Which, I can understand, I can sympathize, but it needs to be based on you strongly feel, based on the comments you received back from the panel, that they just didn't understand what you were trying to say. The award is distributed in 2 payments. So when you sign your contract, you will get a 75% check of the total award amount. And then when your event is done, you can submit a final report. And that final report, once accepted by our office, then we issue the final 25% payment. Okay? Any questions on any of that? Yes?
Under criteria, number 4, governance, what is that?
Governance is who serves on your board, what is their tenure, do they represent a diverse variety of members of the public, do they represent your audience, are they active, do you meet regularly as a governing body, things like that. Okay. And actually, we have a new form related to that, so we'll show you that. Try to make it as simple as possible. All right, so this is a little, why does that look blurry? But this is the checklist. So what you're going to do is, as long as you have each of these components in your application, as they're done, check them off. And then you're going to sign at the bottom. As long as those checks are checked and they're in the application, you should have a complete application and be in good shape. The items in red are new this year. We are requiring a budget narrative this year, and we'll talk about that. We are adding 2 new forms. One is a board and governance chart, and the other is a social media and marketing form. All right, and we will show you what those are. This is your signature page. Let me just see if I can do this. Well, I have to see it. There we go. This is your signature page. Identify who you are, the address you're going to use, your federal tax information, your legislative district, cultural code. Those are all in your guidelines. A brief elevator pitch on what you're applying for. So like no more than 3 sentences. And then you're going to identify which of the 3 types of grants you're applying for and how much you're requesting. So only one of these 3 lines should have a number in it. Are you doing a special project, a GPS, or an operating request? The contact information should be for the individual completing the application. Because if we get the application and there's a question or something's missing, we're going to reach out to whoever is identified on the signature page. And if you had your treasurer complete the application and your executive director is on the signature, and we call the executive director and say, Form F doesn't have so-and-so, and they'll be like, what are you talking about? So we want to make sure that whoever completed the application is the primary contact. All right, so the narrative, no more than 5 pages, and you're going to, now keep in mind, there are grants review panelists who likely do not know your organization. So you want to try to explain as succinctly as possible and clearly as possible who you are, why you exist, what you plan on doing, where and when, who's going to be involved, who do you hope your audience to be, what do you hope the impact is going to be on that program. That's basically it. You want to just tell your story in 5 pages or less. If your event is really large and only a portion of it is being covered by the grant, concentrate on the portion of the program that you're requesting grant funds for. So there may be components of your program. Let's say, in addition to the program that's publicly accessible and being funded, you're also doing a $75 a plate dinner, or you're doing something else over here, you're going on a field trip. We don't need to hear all about that stuff. We just want to hear about what you're requesting funding for. Okay? New this year is a budget narrative. 1 page. In fact, I'll show you, there's an actual page in the application now. You can use this page and just fill it in, or you can say, see attached, and then do it separately. But in the budget narrative, you want to explain what expenses are being supported by the grant. Not your overall budget unless you're applying for operating support, but what the grant funds are going to be used for. So, for instance, if you're doing a concert series, you're going to say, all right, we're going to have 3 performers. Performer number 1, we know who that is. It's this person. They're going to charge us $1,500. $1,500 is going to go for their expenses. Performer 2, we're not sure who it's going to be, but we're dedicating $2,000 for that. And then performer 3 is going to cost $800. It's this person, and that's what we're going to, and then that amount should add up to your total request. If you're going to, if you say part of our marketing are going to be yard signs, and we're going to print 100 yard signs, and we've reached out to Print Signs and Designs, and they charge $4 a yard sign. That's $400. There you go. All right, in a narrative form, 1 page. And then whatever those amounts are that are in there should align with your budget pages. Any questions on the budget narrative? Okay. And then that's the page. So we ask for a publicity plan component to your narrative. This is really part of your 5-page narrative. Because we ask you who you expect your audience to be or who your audience has been in years past, and we want to know how you're reaching them, or who did not come to your event, and what kind of marketing are you doing to attract those people who didn't make it last year. So talk about your social media, talk about if you're doing any Spanish language marketing, talk about how you're reaching out to underserved communities, seniors, youth, low to moderate income, disabled. Talk about how you know who your audience is. So if you've had an event, you collected demographics somehow. You roughly know who came to your event. We want to understand how you did that. Did you collect zip codes? Did you have volunteers go into the audience and do short surveys? Did you just look at the audience and try to make an assessment of some kind? How are you determining who you're attracting to your event? There should be some methodology you're using, and we want to know what that is. Audience figures are really important because it's one of the methods that we use to show impact on the community, but it's also something that our funders at the state ask for, and so we want to have as accurate a picture as we can provide. All right, any questions on that? Okie doke. We do ask for a very simplified 3-page ADA plan. Yes?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I had a question on the publicity
Okay.
plan. I see the bottom bullet print talks about photographs. So they should be printed out and included in the package?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's an additional slide because we want to make sure that photography is very important. And we want to see your programming. We want to see photography from your programming. All right, the ADA plan only has to be 3 pages or less. We want your mission statement. And then we want a board-approved policy statement regarding access to your programming. So what does that mean? You should have a policy. Your organization should have voted on it. Your governing board should have voted on it. That says that your intent or mission is to provide programming that is accessible to all people. And then you want to and that should be board approved. So there should be something that says the board on June 28th, 2025 voted to identify this policy statement as part of your overall mission. If you have not done that, you've got a month to do it. You can also say that you intend to do it before the award, so sometime by the end of the year. You should also have some type of grievance procedure in place as a policy. So let's say you hold an event outside. Now, I don't know what the venue is. Let's say it's a grassy area. And there's someone that attends in a wheelchair, and they feel that they do not have proper access to the event. And at the event, they complain to one of your volunteers. There should be a procedure in place that the volunteers are aware of that says, all right, when I get a complaint regarding accessibility, I communicate that to this person, executive director, whoever it may be, and then that executive director has a procedure that he or she goes through. They communicate with the complainant, they take a written statement, they present it to the board, they talk about methods to alleviate it from happening again. They communicate back to the person making the complaint. There should be a procedure, okay? If you do not have one and you need help with it, we have several examples that we can provide to you. Then talk about how your program is reaching or serving people with disabilities, how you're marketing to various audiences, and then how you are ensuring that the venues you're using are fully accessible. So if you're having an event at Levoy, we know that's accessible. But if you're having an event in the gymnasium of Millville High School, what you probably need to do is go through and make sure there's proper handicap parking, there's curb cuts, there's accessible routes to where you're performing, that you actually go through and make sure that those venues are accessible. Okay, and again, if you're not sure on that, you can Google it or we can provide it. There's a kind of a checklist walkthrough you can do of any venue space, outside, inside, wherever. And they kind of list off what you should be looking for and considering. Okay? That's your ADA plan. We expect those things in the ADA plan. If the ADA plan is a sentence that says, we fully comply with ADA law, that is not an ADA plan because we need to know the details. Okay? All right, photography and marketing materials. This is new. I think we've always asked for photography, but we just want to reiterate how important photography is. So if you have held previous events or activities, we want those photographs. We want photographs from those events. We also want to see previously used marketing materials to ensure that the acknowledgments on it, that if you receive grant funding in 25 and you held an event and you did marketing material, we want to make sure that that marketing material had the proper acknowledgments. And then both photography and the marketing materials will be a component in determining success of past programming. Okay?
Matt, may I ask a question, please? When you say photographs, it could be on just like a regular piece of paper. It doesn't have to be like professional.
Correct. No, you can, or you can just email them to Amari separately and say these are the photographs that go with my application. That's fine too. Yes.
How about video?
Yeah, we'll take
Is that
video.
cool too?
Yeah,
Okay.
video's great.
Okay.
Even better. All right, so some of the forms, a lot of these, if you've done the applications before, you know they're the same. Form A is activities. So we want to you to identify as best as you are able what you're planning to do in 2026. The dates, as best as you know them. It can be October if you don't have a specific weekend in mind. The name of the project or activity and your projected attendance. All right, so it could be based on the venue, it could be based on past practice, just a rough number. We're not going to hold you to these numbers. The actual numbers you will provide in your final report. And then we want a description of what you did this year. All right, and those numbers should be accurate because you've probably held your event. So we want to know, on September 1st, we held this event and this many people attended. Yes?
My event is the Saturday after this application's due.
All right, so again, that'll be an estimate. You know when it's going to be, you know what it's going to be, but you're not going to know the attendance.
Okay.
That's fine.
Do you want me to put down anything about past ones? Because this will be like our 6th time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you have 3 finance charts, budget charts. These are your expenses. We kept the matching funds line in there because we expect that most of you will have some type of matching funds. But again, you're not required to have matching funds, so if you happen to have zeros there, that's not going to push you out of consideration. And these categories that are listed here are set by the state. We can't change them, so just work with them as best you can. Basically, Section A are paid salary positions, people you pay in your organization, if there are any. B are artistic, history, or other that you pay from outside, like contractors, scholars, whatever it may be. Section C are capital expenditures, so you're not going to ask for anything in that line, but you can have match from there. And then Section D is everything else. So postage, marketing, supplies, insurance, food expenses, anything else that rentals, porta-johns, rentals of space are all in that category. If you have any questions when you're completing your budget, talk to Amari and he'll be able to help you sort out where they go. Then you have your income side. So there's what we want to know is what you're projecting for 2026. Earned income would be if you're having an event and you're selling tickets, or you're selling popcorn, or you're doing a program book with ad sales. That would go in there. Again, just projected, estimated what you're going to bring in. Section B are donations, so corporations, individuals, foundations, and nonprofits. Section C are other government grants besides this one. And then Section D is other income, which in a lot of cases you wouldn't have, but if you were somehow in the budget bringing forward cash from the previous year to run this event, you could put it in there. And then down here, Cumberland County C&H Award requested in 2026. So this amount, you should put your requested amount in here. Okay? Yes?
So is this income, all the budget forms, just for the project? Or
Yes.
Not the organization?
Correct. Unless you're applying for operating.
Got it.
Okay? And then D is just requesting some additional information. So in C, we have corporations and businesses. So this is a accumulated number. This is a sum number of the total you're projecting corporations and businesses providing. And then D, we just ask you to break that out. So if you're going to be asking Toyota of Vineland for $300, you're going to put Toyota of Vineland, $300. And just, you know, again, these are projections. These are what you would like to see next year, not necessarily what you are sure to get. You know, if there's a law firm, Ritter Law, $400, whatever it may be. We just want to see who you're outreaching to for your fundraising, to get a better sense of who may be on your board, what kind of, you know, who you're reaching out to in the community. And then, you know, we can even make suggestions if, you know, you have nothing there. You think about what impact you're having on the community, where that impact is occurring, and then what businesses are associated with that component of the community, and then reach out to those businesses and see. You never know. Any questions on funding charts? All three of these are in Excel on the website. So when you fill in one of the yellow sections, the white section completes itself. Okay? Again, any problems with it? Amari.
Everyone just look at Amari.
Yep.
He's back there hiding.
All right, Form E is your community chart. Again, we're looking for estimates on, well, actually, we're not, so if it's gray, you don't have to fill it in. So we know you don't know what these are yet for 26 because you haven't had your event. But you do know who sits on your board. You do know who you employ. So we do want these numbers. And we've broken it out by census categories, race, age, variety of categories. We've given you how many are in the county based on the 2020 census in each category. So you're going to indicate who sits on your board and what category they fall into. Okay? This is a new chart. So this is your board and governance chart. In the past, we have said, give us a narrative description of who's on your board, or give us resumes of who's on your board. And it's been very inconsistent. So what we want you to do is try to complete this chart for us. This is your governing board. These are the people, your board of trustees, whatever you may call it. We want the names of each board member, where they reside, their occupation. If they are retired, don't put retired. We want to know what they did before they retired. The year term to end, so they're currently serving in a term. There is a year in which that term expires. Do they serve 5-year terms? Do they serve 3-year terms? So you're going to put the year that the term they're in expires. Then you're going to indicate their total time on the board. Have they been on the board 3 years? Have they been on the board 30 years? We want to get a sense of that. And then we want to know what their title is. So are they on the executive committee? Are they the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, the secretary? Or are they just a board member? You can just put board member if they're not on the executive committee. Okay? Any questions on that? Talk to us. Yes?
So like with us, like we're a Native American tribe, so do you want our council members? Or
Yes.
do you want the committee for the powwow?
Council members, because they're the governing board.
Okay.
Yep. All right, and then this is a new form. This is our social media and marketing form. So again, we've asked you to identify your social media in your narrative. That's been inconsistent. So we're asking you to identify specifically, and believe me, you do not have to have all of these. If you do not have a TikTok account, you're not going to get hit with a negative score because of that. But we just want to know, if you do have these, what's the address, so that both we as staff and the grants review panel can take a look. And it's interesting because in years past, that this information might not have been provided, and we have had grant review panelists search you out. And then they'll make comments on, oh, they haven't updated their Facebook page in 6 months. And so we just want everything on one page so that it makes it easier for the grants review panel. That's the application. That's it. It sounds like a lot, but it really isn't for the potential funding that we can provide. Speaking of funding, so last year, if you were here, you may have heard us talk about, we were really concerned about 26 because of the state budget and everything else going on. We were afraid it was going to be a new year, 3-year cycle for us. We weren't sure what it was going to bring in. There were a lot of concerns. So we said, be realistic, you might get cut. But we're happy to say that we actually got an increase for 2026. So on both the history and the art side. So we have 3 years of solid funding at the levels we are used to. So that being said, you want to be realistic with your requests and align them with your capacity. Okay. And then the other thing I want to just talk about a little bit is, in years past, we've talked about, thinking outside the box and coming up with new ideas and a variety of different ways to provide art and history to the community. And I just want to talk a little bit from experience, some of the things we're doing at the county. And we would encourage you to think about this as well. So one of the things is really think about working with your municipalities to bring art and history into their programming. We know that a lot of municipalities are doing a variety of projects. They might be building something, they might be renovating a school. They're always working on something. And for municipalities, sometimes it's challenging to incorporate art or history into that project. They may not know the artists. They may not know where to start. And so the easiest thing for them is to say, nah, we'll just do a brick wall. But if you have a relationship with your municipality and you say, hey, anytime you want a mural on one of your buildings, we can help you facilitate that. We know the artists, we know how to do it, we have the procedure, this is what you do. And I would speculate that a lot of municipalities would take you up on that, to incorporate art into their construction projects. We're trying to do that at the county wherever we can. And these are just some examples from around the country of projects that are doing that. The lower one is actually in Philadelphia. They have a whole program for recreation centers. So if rec centers are being constructed or renovated, they have a whole program that the city can say, hey, we want art in the rec center, and the mural arts program will facilitate the whole process. So the city doesn't have to worry about it. And then the other thing is art in the parks. So every municipality has a park system. Cumberland County now has a park system. And there are many, many ways that you can incorporate art into open spaces. We have an example in Millville of a basketball field that was renovated, basketball court that was renovated, and they put art on the basketball court. That's what this picture is up here. That's in New York. You could, this is a cinder block wall. I know I've seen these around. They're everywhere, right? So if you are an art organization and you say to the city, hey, you know that ugly concrete cinder block wall that's on 5th Street, would you mind if we put art on it? It would reduce graffiti, it would make the space more enjoyable for people who are utilizing it. We'll facilitate the whole thing. We'll bring in the paint, the artists, we'll get volunteers, we'll do it. This is a simple, you could have, you know, a variety of kids do this. This is just, you know, a geometric pattern using the cinder blocks as the foundation.
So the other one is cups on a fence? That's
Yes.
pretty cool.
So I am obsessed with cyclone fencing right now
Wow.
because we did Giles Street Park in Bridgeton, that's a county park, and we put a new fence around, and we said there are these pucks you can buy for the fencing in different colors and everything, and you identify basically the design you want, and then they calculate what colors and how many you need, and then you order the pucks. And so all we did was, it says welcome on the sign in variety and colors.
That's cool.
And it turned out so cool. And I just found this example of like, welcome isn't necessarily art, but this certainly is. And so as we bring in cyclone fencing to our park system, we're going to try to make sure that there's some type of art on the fencing. So there's the puck option. Down here is what's referred to as fence weaving. It uses kind of like they're vinyl strips that you could use for vinyl fencing for blocking views, but you can get different colors and create art with them by weaving them together in different patterns. And then the example here is actually in the center. It's a mesh material that an artist has taken photographs of people in the park, transferred it to the mesh, and then attached it to the cyclone fencing as an art exhibit in New York. So, you know, a lot of times cyclone fencing is considered like awful, but you can actually use it as a backdrop for some really neat art. So, yeah, as a canvas, exactly. So if you get a chance to drive past Giles Street Park, take a look at the welcome sign we did with the pucks. Very simple, it's not as fancy as this, but it kind of got us thinking, and we were like, yeah, we should try to do that everywhere we put cyclone fencing of some kind. So that's it. Again, Omari's the man. Do you have comments or questions?
Yes. So, as Matt alluded to a bunch of times during the program, I'm your guy. But not only that, so I sit with the grants review panel. So my mouth is shut, my hands are tied, and it frustrates me every year when I sit there and I know how great all of your programming is for all of you who have come back year over year over year. But I can't say anything. I'm just an impartial observer. So what I'm coming back with now is you get consent comments back from the panel, but I'm just coming with some things that I keep hearing over and over and over, and it impacts your applications and your scoring, and that I just kind of want to put a fine point on. So one of the things that I hear all the time is, I don't understand what this program is. Like, they literally do not understand what you're trying to accomplish. So you really have to be extremely clear about what your goals are and what you're trying to do. And with that, the historical or artistic significance. So if you're a historical organization and you're going on and on about, we're going to do this great book or we're going to do this great program, and you don't explain what the historical significance is or why it's culturally significant to Cumberland County, the panelists are like, why should we give money towards this? You have to make it so that they understand why this is so important, or why the things that you're trying to promote are so important for you to be able to do that. Also, we talked about lack of diversity. So lack of diversity, I know everybody's like, oh, well, we don't have people from different ethnic backgrounds. It's not just that. And that's why that board form is so important. When they're asking about occupations, that's a great opportunity for you to show your diversity. We have teachers, we have law enforcement professionals, we have carpenters, we have artists, whatever that diversity, that's a great way to show your diversity. Also with that, the ages of some of your board members. And some of these things like that, and I know the social media form, you're like, oh, why do you really care about the social media? It's also for you as well. Like Matt said, I've had multiple times where people have said that we looked at their social media and they haven't updated it. So maybe when you're filling out this form, you can take a look at your social media. Have we updated it? Are we even using these channels anymore? Are they still effective? So those things are very important. If you're going to have it, you should use it. Another thing that comes up all the time is the budget. That's why we put in the budget narrative form, because they'll see the numbers and they'll be like, what do you mean you want to spend $4,000 for marketing? Well, that may be television advertising, radio, and print advertising. They have no idea that that's what you're going to be spending it on. The clearer you can be with all of this stuff, the better it is. I try to express that you want it to be like, instead of them reading it, you're like reading it to them. Like, so it's so clear that they understand without being able to ask, because they have no opportunity to ask you any questions. So if you're not clear in your application, they're just not going to get it. And again, they're not bad people, and they're not trying to dunk on your application or anything. They're just trying to make sure they're giving out funding and scoring your applications in a way that's fair and is the best bang for the county's buck. Because that's what we all want. We all want to put money into programming, artistic and historical programming, that's going to advance Cumberland County and the great art, history, and culture that we have in this county. That's why we're all in this room. But if you're not clear with some of these things, it gets overshadowed. And it's really heartbreaking to me, because like I said, I love all your programming. I enjoy coming to your program. I enjoy promoting the things that you do. But this is one instance where I don't have the ability to do that. And if I don't help give you these things, then you'll continue to not be able to put out the best possible applications that you could. So I just didn't want that to go without saying. I really want you guys to all be successful. And then with that, if there's any questions, or like Matt said, something's unclear, like, okay, well, we're renting a stage. Where do I put that in the budget numbers? Give me a call. Shoot me a text. Most of you have my cell and stuff like that. If you don't, I'm going to be around. You can ask me questions that might pop up now. That's also why we wanted to do this now, to give you guys more time to work on your applications. And like I said, even if you want to send me like a quick draft, like, hey, does this make sense narrative-wise? You can shoot that to me. Or I was thinking about this. Is this clear? Because it's better to send it earlier than later, and then you have no opportunity for that.
Yep.
Is that fair?
That's great.
Also with that, images are great. I know it's a requirement. Really take advantage of that, because the images a picture tells a 1,000 words, right? So put that in, as well as your marketing materials. They want to see marketing materials, because one thing that's come up with a lot of organizations is they're like, this sounds like a great program. What did they do to get it out for people to be able to come and see it? And if they feel like if you're not promoting your programming, why should they invest in it? So that's another area.
Right.
Any question for me, or anything coming up? Like I said, I'm going to hang out for a bit if anybody has any questions.
All right, great. Thank you, Amari. So Q&A, any thoughts, any concerns, anything maybe with the narrative? What would be a good idea is, once the narrative is done, give it to someone who is not familiar with your program. Give it to a family member. Give it to your teenager, and ask them to read it and see if they understand what you're asking for. And That's really, it's really important, because keep in mind these grant review panelists have a lot of applications to go through, and it's a big job. And those meetings, those panel meetings, run for hours and hours as we go through and try to select scores and figure out who's getting what. So big task on their part. The easier you can make it and simpler in your application, the better it is all around. All right, so if there are no questions, both Amari and I are going to be here. There's plenty of food, hang out. Thank you for coming, and good luck with your application. We can't wait to see what you're doing. All right, thank you.
Thank you.